Common sense starts with sensors. South Korea's defense budget is expected to rise to 3 out of 5% of gross domestic product. This agreement with the United States at the last Korea-United States summit led South Korea to make its largest defense budget increase in 7 years. Let's examine this topic. There was a shocking scene at the recent Korea-United States summit. Usually, the United States makes demands, and South Korea eventually agrees, but this time was different. South Korea was the first to pledge higher defense spending to the United States. It's not due to United States pressure. South Korea decided on its own to increase defense spending. There's a reason for this. The United States has agreed with NATO members on the 5% gross domestic product rule, but it's not just about spending 5% on military gear. That covers 3.5% for direct defense spending and up to 1.5% for indirect costs such as bases, logistics, and infrastructure. In other words, it's not just about the money spent on buying tanks and fighter jets, but also includes the land and facilities needed to maintain and deploy those weapons, totaling about 5% of the defense budget. They're using this standard for Korea too. A United States official said Korea and the United States agreed in talks to raise Korea's defense budget to 3 to 5% of gross domestic product soon. The phrase "as soon as possible" has appeared in media reports and is significant, but its exact meaning remains open to interpretation. Korea rapidly increased its defense budget. Korea and the United States considered different ways to meet the 5% of gross domestic product goal, looking at both defense budget increases and indirect security costs like civil military R&D. Like NATO, Korea also needed to boost its defense budget as the new Cold War era began. As authoritarian societies unite around China, it keeps expanding its influence through the West Sea. With China's military power growing stronger day by day, Korea is also facing a threatening situation. Amid growing calls to improve treatment of soldiers, demands for a higher defense budget are also emerging. Right now, there aren't enough people in the military, so one person has to do the work of 5. We need to gradually increase the number of soldiers. Let's first take a look at the current state of the military. In 2019, our military had 560,000 personnel. By July 2025, it's 450,000. In just 6 years, 110,000 soldiers have disappeared. Why is this serious? Because to face the North Korean military in the current situation, we need at least 500,000 troops. Some people say that since North Korea's conventional military power is weak, it doesn't matter if we have fewer troops. Even with advanced technology, we still need manpower. It's also possible the Chinese military could intervene. We need at least 500,000 troops, but we've dropped below that and are now short up to 50,000 soldiers. A significant portion of the troops are in the Army. As of 2019, the Army had 300,000 soldiers, but now it's down to 200,000. That's a decrease of nearly 100,000 soldiers. As a result, the number of battalion level or higher units has also decreased significantly due to the reduction in troops. In 2006, there were 59 such units, but now that number has dropped to 42. 17 units have been disbanded or merged. In fact, in November 2025, the 28th Infantry Division, also known as the Typhoon Division, is scheduled to be disbanded. The problem with junior officers is severe. As many military members know, they are the backbone of the military, but now this backbone is close to breaking. The number of officers applying for early discharge is rising each year. 1,351 in 2021, 1,694 in 2022, 2,212 in 2023, and 2,723 in 2024. 2025 isn't over yet, but 2,869 have already been recorded. Of the 2,869 early discharge applicants in 2025, about 2,460, 86%, were non-commissioned and junior officers. The phenomenon of military personnel leaving is intensifying among junior and mid-level officers, who are responsible for commanding key field unit personnel and managing unit operations. Additionally, more military officers are taking leave. Officers on leave rose from 1,846 in early 2021 to 3,884 by early 2025. This creates a vicious cycle, because as the number of officers on leave increases, the workload for the remaining officers gets heavier. They're already suffering from excessive work due to a shortage of personnel, and now the burden is getting even worse. So it seems that urgent measures are needed. The current government has aimed to raise the defense budget to improve soldiers' treatment. The timing of the Korea-United States summit also helped them gain practical benefits. Because of this, it seems that this time the government is planning to focus on improving soldiers' welfare when increasing the defense budget. Right away, the government is planning to raise the salaries of junior officers by up to 6%. They expanded the Tomorrow Preparation Savings Program, matching 300,000 won monthly for 3 years, totaling 10.8 million won for long-term service members. They also plan to extend incentives and bonuses to Reserve Officers Training Corps members and civilian-acquired non-commissioned officers. Weekday duty allowance increases from 20,000 to 30,000 won. Holiday allowance rises from 40,000 to 60,000 won. The meal cost will rise by 1,001 self-sustaining and self-characteristics programs will double, and weapon purchases will likely continue. They decided to increase the support budget for the initial development and mass production of the KF-21 Boramae fighter jet from 1.3 trillion won to 2.4 trillion won. They invested 63.6 billion won in next-gen stealth fighter research and 41.8 billion won in advanced weapons for drone and robot R&D. The government said setting the defense budget at 3.5% of gross domestic product is possible. On August 29, the government set the 2026 defense budget at 66.2947 trillion won. This is about an 8.2% increase compared to the 2025 defense budget of 61.2469 trillion won. This is very high. The largest defense budget increase was 8.7% in 2008. This is the second highest. If approved by the National Assembly, the defense budget is expected to reach 2.42% of gross domestic product, 0.1 percentage points higher than in 2025. The government plans to raise the defense budget to 84.7 trillion won, an increase of 3 trillion won by 2029. This figure is in the low to mid 3% range of gross domestic product compared to projected growth. Interestingly, South Korea's defense budget hasn't surpassed 3% of gross domestic product since 1990. Now, projections show it will soon top 3%, highlighting global instability. Since this was agreed at the South Korea-United States summit, we had to meet some United States demands. First of all, it seems that we will have to purchase some American weapons. It is expected that we will introduce reconnaissance and surveillance assets, among others. The military is considering Apache helicopters, aerial refueling, airborne early warning, and special mission aircraft. Interestingly, there are also observations that discussions on introducing advanced weapons that the United States has not sold before could become more active. The government now appears to be seeking revision of the Korea-United States nuclear agreement. The government stated that regarding discussions on revising the Korea-United States nuclear agreement, they aim to secure rights similar to those of Japan as much as possible, and are negotiating with the United States so that we have more flexibility in uranium enrichment and reprocessing. Under the current agreement until 2035, Korea can enrich uranium to under 20% only with United States consent. Reprocessing spent nuclear fuel is banned due to concerns Korea could develop nuclear weapons. Many experts have long called for revising the Korea-United States nuclear agreement. Some have urged us to revise the agreement so we can, like Japan, enrich uranium below 20% and reprocess spent nuclear fuel without United States consent. It looks like they're revising this. If the Korea-United States nuclear agreement allows reprocessing spent fuel and enriching uranium below 20%, we would gain the ability to develop nuclear weapons very quickly in an emergency. The difference between having this and not having it is quite significant. I hope this agreement is revised well. However, the defense budget increase isn't just an internal issue for Korea. We must point out that this is deeply intertwined with the international situation. It also means that the food war has intensified that much. Let's look at Japan first. Japan announced in 2022 it would raise its defense budget to over 2% of gross domestic product. This is the largest military buildup since World War I. It's not just about increasing the numbers. Japan is also moving to acquire offensive capabilities, such as deploying long-range missiles. The United States is supporting this and making Japan a key partner in its free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. South Korea's defense spending increase must be seen in this context, and the Taiwan crisis is also relevant. Since Xi Jinping took power, China has made unification with Taiwan a national goal and increased military pressure. The United States military has run strategic exercises using forces in Japan and South Korea for a possible Taiwan crisis. This means South Korea could serve as a rear base in a Taiwan war emergency. Right away, the reconnaissance assets and aerial refueling aircraft of the United States Forces Korea, as well as equipment like early warning aircraft that South Korea will need to purchase additionally, will play important roles in such a scenario. China has militarized artificial islands in the South China Sea and is confronting the United States, which conducts freedom of navigation operations. For South Korea, there isn't a direct territorial dispute, but more than 30% of Korea's import and export volume passes through these waters. A conflict would directly impact South Korea's economy. That's why the United States wants South Korea to defend the Korean peninsula and take on responsibilities across the Indo-Pacific region. Ultimately, this defense spending hike isn't only about North Korea. It's part of an international strategy aligned with Japan, considering potential future conflicts in the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea. South Korea is now at the center of the Northeast Asian arms race, and it's hard to avoid this trend. The defense spending agreement from the Korea-United States summit should be seen in the context of the broader international situation. What are your thoughts on South Korea's rising defense budget? Share in the comments. Thanks for watching.